Strongest, let's not forget his secondary title. He is also the strong man of Bitcoin entrepreneurs. Some people call him a dictator, but that's just people who don't like him. And we've got Brad. So welcome, my beautiful Canadian friends. How you doing? How we doing? How we doing? Let's go. How we doing?
Go ahead, Dave.
Good. Just
Good.
lazy afternoon so far, or lazy morning so far.
We like lazy mornings. That's okay. That's okay. And how about you, Brad?
Macros. I got my
Eating
lunch
your
on the go here.
macros. Yeah, you do.
Extra lean ground turkey, some no salt, no oils.
Where are you in your health cycle right now? Are you cutting? Are you bulking? Where are you going?
You know, I'm doing better. I'm doing great today, but from my 6 weeks off out East Coast with the East Coast lifestyle, I got comfortable. And
Well,
you know,
really, I thought the Gestapo chasing you through the woods was going to keep you fit and trim.
I enjoy it. I thrive on that. I thrive on that. But I got comfortable with I was only going to the gym 4 days a week, and I was kind of taking it easy on my diet and routine. I ended up gaining 10 pounds in the middle of my cut. So it's kind of brutal, but I'm back on the cut now. So now I'm trying to shred still.
Well, the same thing happened to me this summer, I'll be honest. I was sitting pretty. I'd been persistently at the same weight for about 4 or 5 years, not 2 or 3 pounds difference, not really feeling like a need to change, but we're all getting older, and I gained 10 pounds this summer too. So this
Did you?
happened. Yeah, I didn't even understand how. It just happened.
Probably mostly water weight.
Could be. Yeah, I've taken it a little more seriously, and now I'm cutting out the sugar.
Oh wait, we can just do like Carney would do and say, "Oh, it's your operating weight is still down low. Your operating weight is balanced."
So psychologically, I'm my old weight.
I gained 10 pounds, but my operating weight is healthy.
As a percentage of the total weight of all Canadians, my weight is down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, the more people we welcome into Canada, the more our percentage of the overall weight of total Canadians comes down. So you're less of the total Canadian mass, which is good.
So I've lost weight.
According to the GDP. If you run it through the GDP filter, you're basically the skinniest you've ever been. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
actually, I've got
gross
funny
domestic
numbers.
poundage. You're doing good.
That's more or less what the parliamentary budget officer of Canada has told the federal government, because they testified yesterday. That'll be our first story we're going to look into today. But first, let's talk about this graph. You're going to love this graph. This graph is going absolutely viral right now on the Twitter, and it talks about Canada's industrial capacity. And I liked it, and I'm starting the show today because I didn't know Table Salt was able to speak crypto lingo, and he calls it here, the Liberals are a shitcoin. So there's no way I couldn't start it. And what this is, this graph here, the Liberals are a shitcoin. It's got to be, you can't not look at it. So the graph here is the industrial implosion, investment in industrial machinery and equipment. And we see here Liberals are elected, and I believe it's the other one. They're comparing it to the Americans. So as with many things in our history, as we've recognized most of our life, we mostly dovetailed at the 1/10 scale of the United States. Everything was pretty much synced up for most of our lives. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s, then GDP was relatively in contango, income was relatively similar, and important metrics like this, the industrial investment, ones that are harder to game, right? This is just people buying tractors, trucks, machines, and all that stuff. We see here that the world really, really bifurcated when the Liberals were elected, and the story where Canada and America were more or less in the same universe is completely different now. And this is a huge indictment of what's going on in Canada. So, thoughts on this? Is this something you perceive with your own eyes? You were, of course, Brad, you're living in one of the industrial heartlands of Canada, of course, Southern Ontario, also a farming heartland. But does this pass the visible test for you?
That the liberals are a shitcoin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're shitcoin.
Agreed.
Agreed. Great.
Agreed.
Let me show you a little bit more.
It's like the ideas sound good, and we're trying to do this because of fairness and equality and blah blah blah. But like, really, what you're doing is creating problems, and there's no fundamentals behind your policies.
It's a real shitcoin.
I've been using the metaphor of the Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner to describe the economy for a while, where, for a long time now, it's felt like the economy was basically Wile E. Coyote chasing the Roadrunner across the canyon, and he pauses in midair just as he's realized that he's fucked up, but he hasn't yet realized that he's subject to the laws of gravity, so he hasn't started to fall yet. And we're like, I've been saying we're at that spot for a while, but now it's falling. Basically,
it's falling. Yeah, and we'll go through that here. So here's, I don't know if you guys have seen.
Okay, wait, a little distraction, but so whenever I see something like that, I got to go look at what the previous posts were. Table Salt is not a Bitcoiner.
No,
he's a no-coiner. He's talking about how the net present value of Bitcoin is $0. It has no cash flow. So this is like back in 2024, even. So even within a year ago, the guy still doesn't grok Bitcoin. So he's using the shitcoin term. That's funny, but he also is not,
Agreed.
Not a good guy to listen to.
He is. He's pretty good at gathering these, in real time indictments of Canadian success. So he's pretty good at underlining fiat failure. But imagine spending your time underlining in data every day Canadian fiat failure. It is in itself a shitcoin job. Imagine you spent your day in current times analyzing Ethereum as if it's real and making arguments that it's gonna, it's not doing well. I wouldn't spend my day doing that. It made sense if you remember. This is something I was talking about in my show today that people forgot. Early days in Bitcoin, you had to be somewhat expert's the wrong word, but you had to know what you were talking about to compare Bitcoin's mechanisms and technical foundations with shitcoins. So we all became a little bit expert in Ethereum, and people don't realize that Pierre Rochard, because they only hear him, post 2021 Bitcoin crypto split, but people forget that Pierre Rochard was probably the world expert in Ethereum. If you remember how he would go toe to toe with Vitalik on a daily basis, he was in the GitHub with the ETH heads all the time, making fun of this and making fun of that. So indeed, a lot of Bitcoiners were shitcoin experts, not for their own benefit, just to dispel the myths that they were anything like Bitcoin. So
I kind of fancy myself somewhat of that way, right? Because I felt like it was a bit intellectually inconsistent. If I didn't truly understand it, if I could criticize it, I should go in and gamble all my money away on it.
Well, it's true though. But we were, like I said, that's just it. Where there's this guy, he's still analyzing shitcoins. Like what Bitcoiner do you know in the last 5 years has spent any bit of their brain power just on shitcoins alone? That was a 10-year ago thing mostly. It ran up to 2020, but no one really even takes, it used to be, you remember, Vitalik would say something stupid and then everyone in Bitcoin Twitter would just start breaking it down and analyzing it. No one even cares.
Yeah, it's way less of a thing now. Bitcoiners don't really care too much about the shitcoins this cycle.
No. And that's
it's more like they got mad about the treasury companies more than the shitcoins this cycle.
They sure did. And that's one of the reasons why I mentioned that on the show this morning, just talking about this Knots thing and what's going on over there. I just wanted to, underline that, first of all, I didn't believe the reporting that there's a hard fork plan for Bitcoin. It was all rage engagement. The newspaper was even called The Rage. And, I don't buy it. I just like they were the ones who did the thing this summer about Google banning self-custody wallets unless you had a banking license, which was also rage bait and was not true. So that was their last big scoop. So not true. I just wanted to underline that to our audience. I mean, nuanced, but not that. So here's the data that other people are talking about in Canada today, and it came from the Parliamentary Budget Officer. So in the United States, there's a Congressional Budget Officer. This is the Canadian version. It's supposed to be a nonpartisan job that is a resource to members of parliament if they have questions about financial bamboozlement that's happening in the system. So what you normally do is you use this guy if you're in opposition and you believe the government is rolling you, you call up the Parliamentary Budget Officer and you say, Parliamentary Budget Officer, can you do a neutral analysis of this or that? That's their job. It's a function of the Library of Parliament, just like it's a function in the United States of the Library of Congress. And so this is supposed to be a neutral office. And so this is what people have been talking about yesterday and today. Canada's financial watchdog, it pulls the fire alarm on Canada's financial situation. If you don't change, this is done. It's very serious. Something is going to break. A bunch of other people going further with those quotes saying, basically, this is an existential threat to Canada. Canada's interim parliamentary budget officer, Jason Jock, warns the country's current fiscal outlook is so bad that it could end Canada as a country. And this is testimony before the House Finance Committee saying Liberals will just replace him and we'll forget all about it. That's what someone's predicting. And people are underlining here, the great economist Carney is going to bankrupt our country, which is really just kind of hilarious to see this happening. So, Dave, I know you love these stories of trickery and what's going on with the Liberals in the budget in particular. So, I mean, this is what you've been saying for a while, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've got into this kind of interesting spot where the Liberal government is so very transparently acting against the best interests of Canadians. And I think they're kind of in this spot where, they're kind of panicking because everyone's noticing. And so they're just doubling down. Like, it's like they're just going to loot as much as they can in the limited time they may have left and try to get through as much of their globalist City of London agenda that they can cram into the Canadian law as fast as they can, and hope that no one storms the Bastille.
Well, we'll get to that. There are some predictions that they don't have much time left, and some people are saying that. So we'll talk about that in a second. But what's your reaction, Brad, to this kind of hilarious failure and the Parliamentary Budget Officer coming out and saying, this is not just some lying on the budget. This is an existential threat, and Canada itself can end.
Well, it's just another, Bitcoiners are early to the trend again. And, we figured this out a long time ago. And, that's why some of us tried to change things. And some of us realized it's not going to change. So we're not going to waste our time. And why most, like 99% of Canadians, won't even see that news and will be instead distracted by like Tylenol or something. So
there's a lot of people going to the hospital for Tylenol overdoses, by the way. It's like it's so like, much Tylenol.
Just like another reason why I'm glad I don't really pay too much attention to politics anymore, because like this writing is on the wall, is clearly obvious. We all knew this was going to happen. But what's the point of talking about it so much? The
Tylenol enjoyers have been telling us for a long time this was going to happen, right? That's what they call themselves in school now, Tylenol enjoyers.
Oh, really?
Are you a Tylenol enjoyer? Was your mother?
I did see. I saw Carney's seat last week, though. I went into the House of Commons and I sat in Carney's seat.
Very cool. You got the tour.
Yeah, one of the MPs gave us a tour of the House of Commons, and there was nobody in it, and I kind of just like sat in Carney's seat and farted. I farted. That's what I say about that news.
Yeah,
don't tell anyone though.
Here's another indictment of Carney that people are noticing, especially as we'll discuss next with what he's saying at the UN. This is a bit of the foreign policy stuff, right? So turning outside. We'll come back to domestic in a second, but here's just to stay on Carney. Does anyone remember the propaganda piece from the election that praised Carney for flying to Europe to convince them to sell their U.S. treasuries? Well, I sure do.
I literally had a debate with one of my uncles who was like convinced that the reality of the situation was Mark Carney was going to rescue Canada. He was selling off all the United States treasuries. He was convincing Europe to not buy treasuries anymore. He was convincing Amazon and Google to build all their AI data centers in Canada. And the United States was going to go bankrupt because Mark Carney is one of the smartest people in the world. And I just like kind of went to ChatGPT and I was just like, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? Nothing was true. Like nothing that he thought about what reality was happening in life was true. It was so sad and depressing to hear that like they've convinced themselves like that he's our savior. He's so professional, smart, and sophisticated. Well, so what's the rest of it? Like obviously this is not happening.
No, here's the graph. All they've been doing is stacking ever since, like crazy. Like Europe is way up, like vertical up, like stacking like a Bitcoiner crazy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like stacking like a Bitcoiner who suddenly is making more money than they've ever made, and they don't know what to do with it, and they're obsessed with Bitcoin. That's what the rest of the world is doing right now. You got who's green here? The UK way up, Japan neutral-ish. I guess China's down a little bit. Even Canada's up.
What's that gray one in the middle that's down?
That's China.
China's down. Okay.
Yeah, whichever.
And Japan had to sell everything. Like they got to sell everything.
Yeah, yeah. They wish they could be up. They're trying to get back up.
That's interesting. That imagine there was a lie told.
No, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. So indeed, here's another, this is the speech he gave, right? So the news in Canada is trying to say that Mark Carney put Canada on a clear path away from Trump's America at the UN. So they're here arguing that Mark Carney had a bigger effect or a relative effect to Trump's UN address, which was probably talked about by every media outlet in the world, hated by a lot, loved by others. Meanwhile, Carney was in a side room. Nobody cared. No one talked about it except for Canadian news. And his whole point was, if you remember, when Trump looked at the audience during that, and he said very clearly that very, very bad people are trying to convince you about the net zero and the global warming stuff. And it's a scam. It's the biggest fraud in the history, the biggest con job in the history of the world. And what does Mark Carney do the next day but treat the con job as if it's real and that he is the receptacle for you to pour your cash in to enjoy the con job? So it was one of the greatest contrasts you'll ever see. Because, of course, he couldn't even acknowledge what Trump was saying about it. He had to like pretend Trump never made that speech, pretend he wasn't talking about Carney, and then try and deliver it straight face. And you should see he tries to turn the charm on. Right, you can see he's trying to say like, Mr. Speaker, thank you, and this and that, and it's one of the most pathetic, weak speeches you'll ever see. So, as an Albertan, how much did you love, Dave, hearing, first of all, global warming spoken aloud to the UN as a con job, and then watching the leader of Canada try to sell it as anything but that in a little tiny side stage the next day?
Well, I'm sure glad that we have a genius like Carney here who's able to save us from cows causing bad weather with more taxes.
It's what you need. It's the number one thing. It's the most important thing, right? And of course, here's to bring it all back after Carney went after Trump like that. And
wait, just on that note, like, I was thinking about this a few weeks ago. It just dawned on me, and it was because I was probably like watching a history video or something like that. And it was like, it dawned on me that like humans always do the same stuff. We have this like flaw of, especially like the regular crowd of people, especially when they're afraid and they are hurted, you know? And they don't have the time or the money or the environment where they can be going and looking at information that's contrary to what they're being fed. And like in today's day and age, that's kind of like everybody for the most part. And I was watching a TV show. It was Jason Momoa's new TV show on Apple TV about like the Hawaiian Islands and the war that happened in the Hawaiian Islands and all that stuff. And they have all these gods on the different islands. It was like the 5 different islands or whatever. They each have a type of god that is a different, one controls the weather or one controls the harvest or whatever. I was like, man, like these people like fight and kill each other over a god that they believe that if they do not do this or they don't act a certain way, it's going to anger the god and the weather will change and that will ruin their lives. And I'm like, then science is the new god.
It's the oldest con. It's the same con. Give me your money, I'm going to change the weather.
Or it's just like just the idea that like, oh, people back then were so stupid. Like, how could they all group together and persecute a group of individuals to the point where they lost their lives, blah, blah, blah. It's like, we're doing it now. We do it with thinking that the weather can be controlled by giving money and stopping, some of your behaviors. It's like the exact same thing, but like hundreds of years later, like if I stop my behavior in this way, the weather will change. It's the same thing.
What's really funny is in French, and so I gave the speech. I was already anti-global warming and all this stuff when I was in law school, and I gave a speech about global warming being a scam in probably 2008 at my law school. It's like a debate competition, so it was you had to give the speech. And in French, luckily enough, I was making this argument that it's religious. And so in the Christian Bible, of course, if you don't do this, don't do that, then you'll burn in hell. But funny enough, in the French language, global warming, greenhouse, l'effet de serre, it's called l'effet de serre, so the effect of carbon. L'effet de serre rhymes with their word for hell, l'enfer. So it's literally the same argument in both, like they rhyme, right? If you don't do this, you'll burn this way. If you don't do this, you'll burn that way. And so it was fun because I got the whole French audience cracking up. They hadn't. It's nice to tell a joke in a foreign language.
It's just another form of human sacrifice, really. Like the Aztecs were trying to appease the weather gods, and now we're just sacrificing chunks of our time instead of our literal bodies. But in some cases, it ends up taking large chunks of people's lives with this insanity. So it's really not any different.
Yeah, and in my head, I'm like, I'm not even thinking about this from like a political thing where it's like, oh, global warming is a scam and global warming is fake. I'm not even thinking of it from that perspective. I'm just thinking of it from the perspective of how funny it is that hundreds of years ago, we used to have these like ideas that we believed in gods, that if you sacrifice to them or if you didn't do certain behaviors, then the weather would be affected. And now it's the exact same way. Like, most of the 99% of the people that subscribe to global warming as a theory and let it control their thoughts and affect their lives and affect their behaviors, they don't actually understand anything about it. They're just like believing in the science of this weather controlling thing. And it's like, we're just copy paste a weather god with the science of global warming, and you have the same human behavior just being controlled and weaponized through different centuries.
Here's an interesting factoid about this in Hawaii. Did you know? So everything you said about Hawaii is entirely accurate, right? About the history of the political system there and the history of the weather. There were a bunch of other weird features, like on one of the mountains, there was basically a get out of jail free zone. If you committed a crime and you ran to the top of the mountain first.
Yeah, that's in the show.
Yeah.
Like the guy goes to the place and like they can't do anything because he goes to this place and they have to request that he comes back. Do
you know why we know all of this? It's the funniest story. Not a lot of people know this, but do you know that stand-up comedy as an art form, what we know of as stand-up comedy comes from Mark Twain. That's why there's this big award in the United States called the Mark Twain Award for Comedy. Before Huckleberry Finn, before Tom Sawyer, before any of that, he was a travel writer who went to Hawaii and wrote a comedic piece about all of this stuff, all of these rules, all of the culture of Hawaii. And he came back, and at the time, people would do these serious, like these salons existed where you'd be like, you talk about Darwin or whatever. He was the first guy who said, actually, I'm going to charge people a nickel and I'm going to tell jokes on stage. And it was his killer joke of this one was that he wanted to tell all the naked bathing women that Jesus Christ had saved them and they didn't know about it. So he wants them to come out of the water naked so he can tell them the secret, right? He's like, I have to tell you've been saved. You're
that dirty devil.
And of course, in that era, people thought that was hilarious because it was just he had figured out comedic timing, and that's where it comes from. That's literally where our concept of stand-up comedy was invented, because stand-up comedy is like a uniquely American art form. It's not something you find. There's a little bit in Japan, a little bit in the UK, but it's all US spillover. It's not a thing you'll find in a lot of countries in the world. It's an American thing. So it came from Hawaii, people laughing at what you're talking about. So that's the good news, is that people like Carney have been the source of comedy from the very beginning. And now, luckily, his name is Carney, and luckily he is the actual symbol of a total clown show. So this is not going to stop, right? We got more comedy coming. We live in a simulation, apparently. So indeed, when you look at this, and this one's especially for you, my good friend Dave, you gotta enjoy this. This is the, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. This here is the reaction to Carney and the parliamentary budget officer and his predictions. And you see the meme of Barron speaking with Donald saying, your plan to annex Canada is working, Daddy. So indeed, as Zach Tisdale says, is now warning that Canadian finances are so bad they may cease to exist as a country. Exactly what I've been saying for months now. It's annexation by economic force, and will be the 51st state soon. So what say you, Albertan, to this threat of your sovereignty from Barron Trump?
So we are in the meltdown of Canada, obviously. It is an existential threat. It's a very serious existential threat that Canada might not even have a chance to recover from at this point. If Canada were a business and the financial results were this bad, and at the same time the core of the services and products that the business provides are no longer being provided, even to the relatively poor level that they were being provided some 5 or 10 years ago, virtually everything the government provides is much worse than it used to be. The roads are worse, the hospitals are worse. Certainly everything is much less safe. Our property rights are not strongly protected. And so the incentive for the customers, or in this case, the citizens of the country, to continue along in this system is just no longer there. And so I think it is inevitable that Canada is collapsing. And there is there is a risk that certain parts of Canada could get swallowed up by the United States. I think that the funny thing is, I don't think, like, if you were to take Canada as a whole and add it as one state, it would be the second poorest state in the United States. So why would they want Canada as a whole? And really, the part that they would want is Alberta. Alberta is the part that actually makes money. And my hope is that because we do have an economy, we do have the negotiating stick of those resources in our back pocket, that we can actually use that to get ourselves to a position of independence where we don't end up as a protectorate or a state of the United States. I'd be very in favor of having a really close relationship with the United States and a very close economic relationship, and even military treaties. And
you're going to need that. They're going to insist on that no matter. I believe that any Canadian sovereign entity that ends up outside of the U.S. orbit will have to have a full security agreement with the United States, because they're locking the continent down, and they want to know who comes in, and they want to know what they're doing. And I don't think they want to police land borders anymore. I think they want to police the ins and outs to the continent.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, getting to a place where we create a government that does provide the protection of physical safety, it provides law and order, it cracks down on the drug problems, it cracks down on the flow of illegal immigrants and, potential terrorists and whatever else is coming with this virtually unlimited number of people coming from, all these places in the world that don't align with our values. We could be in a position to stay independent, I think, from the United States, but we got to get our shit together.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of Canada is in less of a good position to stay independent from the United States. But the main thing that will probably keep that from happening is that who wants those places?
Yeah.
Right. Do you think anybody's like, oh yeah, we got to get Cape Breton in here? The economic impact is going to be insane.
Can you please not leave? Because I have property in Cape Breton, and I had to pay like a 10% foreigner tax to even get the property, even though I'm from Cape Breton and pay taxes there.
No way. They made
I'm
you
a
take.
foreigner.
They.
But-
Are you
I
kidding?
can't take much more, Dave. I'm never going to financially recover if Alberta leaves.
Well, Brad, you better get yourself a nice place here as soon as possible.
Good point. But okay, I got one question for you though. Like everything sounds good, but like who's going to build the roads? Does Alberta know how to do roads?
I don't know. I think we got a roads guy.
You guys should figure that out first.
Yeah.
Do you know that I did?
I know in Ontario and in Nova Scotia they don't know how to do roads yet. So
Yeah, I've actually got a. I haven't published it because I'm not happy with the quality of it, but I did a show, I guess you can say. I edited a show together, and I called it "Who's Going to Build the Roads?" and I created like an NPC that would ask these NPC questions, and it was that who gonna build the roads? Who gonna build the roads? So I'm glad you picked up on that. It's one of my favorite NPC reactions to anarcho-capitalism when people are just like blown away, wondering who's gonna build the roads, forgetting that the best roads were built by countries with no bureaucracy at a time when there was no bureaucracy, other than the Eisenhower network in America.
if it wasn't for the government, we wouldn't even need roads anymore.
The thing is the roads tend to be pretty well built, and in most places the government doesn't actually build the roads. They just hire companies to build the roads.
No, in Quebec we're in combat. Our roads are terrible, and the government.
And in Cape Breton, honestly, it's incompetence. It's never ending. The same roads every few years are getting done.
The biggest problem that I see is not who will build the roads; it's who will decide when and how the roads will be built. And that's the problem they screw up. But I think if you if you put this into the private sector, we'd probably in very short order have much better technology for building roads. If the company that builds the roads actually has a vested interest in whether the roads last, they're probably going to figure out how to do it a lot better.
Well, that's why I've been talking about building something that I call the Nakamoto Trail for a long time. And it's something that I think we could do and we should do to prove that voluntarism works, because that's one of the problems we have as Bitcoiners is describing voluntarism, because it's sort of forgotten. People forget that royals and other people voluntarily built roads at one time, but this is a slightly different political system. But I believe, the sign that World War II was over in America was the Eisenhower highway network getting implemented and built. And this was a huge engineering feat, building all these highways. They were very jealous of the Autobahn, thought it was a great idea, built them. I think that we should show that a civil engineering project could be undertaken with voluntarism. And I've been calling it the Nakamoto Trail, simply because you can do it with the bikes and the e-bikes. And I do think that's the future of the United States and Canada, that will become the greatest tourism destination in the world with these e-bikes, that people can just come to this continent, buy $1,000 golf cart, basically, and then go on your own. Because the thing about this kind of infrastructure, unlike the Eisenhower network, is you don't need uniform engineering. Anyone can build a track to their town. And what you do is you just put Bitcoin tips, and then you collateralize that Bitcoin and pay stable coin to the people who actually, it can be in stone dust, crushed stone.
Dude,
dirt.
I can't even take out my garbage on time. Like, I don't know if I should be part of this project. I wish you luck. I wish you luck, though.
Yeah, I think it could work. It's
I missed garbage day like 4 times already since.
You got to move to New York City. It's one of the great. Remember when everyone made fun of the New York mayor a couple of years ago because they discovered garbage cans, because they never had garbage cans before, and everyone was making fun of New York. That was always the best part of living in New York. There are no garbage days. Every day is garbage day.
Oh shit!
Every day. You don't. I never knew one garbage. It's just
That's
every day.
Good idea.
I love that. There was no garbage.
Piles up big enough.
There was nothing. There was no recycling. There was no sorting your garbage. And because I remember I'd lived in Toronto just before, and it was already getting ridiculous. It was already like different. And I'm proud of being an early Bitcoiner. I really am. But my actual proudest achievement in life until now is I've never consciously recycled ever in my life. Never. I've never sorted the garbage. Wow. I've never distributed the garbage. I've never found it. I thought it was a scam from day one. And I thought it was a regression of garbage management. I've always
Never.
believed that
Wow.
garbage men should hand. Now I've accidentally, I've done it at people's houses, but that's not consciously recycling. That's
Okay,
trying to
Dave.
stay out of
Wait.
recycling, right?
What's something you've never done in your life
Oh, that's a
consciously?
good question. I was going to weigh in on the recycling though. I think so. I lesser known trivia. Before I got into Bitcoin, I had a recycling company, and so I learned a lot about recycling. And it actually makes a lot of sense, economic and otherwise, to recycle metal.
Yeah, oh yeah,
It-
that's
it-
why they
it-
pay us.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really useful to recycle metal. Recycling paper is a small net positive, although if you were actually worried about removing carbon from the atmosphere, you should throw your paper in the garbage, because trees are a renewable resource that removes carbon from the atmosphere. So that, recycling paper actually has a net impact of putting more carbon in the atmosphere. The rest of everything, glass, plastic, that's not real.
No.
Like glass,
Not even
you can
close.
kind of recycle it, but it's not
It's got to be
useful.
clean. It's
Yeah.
a big nuisance. Big
And
nuisance.
plastic is just completely fake. There's just no such thing as real large scale plastic recycling. And when you hear about the large, the big plastic patch in the middle of the ocean, that's because all the plastic recyclers from China, so-called recyclers, are charging American companies to take away their plastic to recycle it, and then they're dumping it in the ocean.
Wow.
So
bamboozling
it-
carnies. The
it's
carnies
a
are sitting
prime
there.
it's a prime example of the Cobra effect, where the people implementing the policies cannot see one step past their nose, and it ends up having a very negative impact that is opposite to what was intended. So
Opposite of what's intended, but very much in line with the globalists, right? The globalists
And
love this stuff.
you know what I've never done, Brad, is I've never seen the movie Titanic.
Oh, consciously?
Because no, I've never seen it at all, because I already know how it ends.
Okay. Good
You
point.
remember when the movies and movie award shows in the 90s were fun? I can still remember Ben Stiller proposing and Owen Wilson when they were at the top at the Blockbuster Movie Awards or MTV Movie Awards or whatever, and they promised to make Titanic 2, which was that when it sunk there was an air bubble, but it went into the sand, and Matt and Ben Stiller were saying it's called Titani because the last take it's just Titani, and they live in the society of Titani.
Oh, that would be awesome.
It was a very funny awards show. I'll never forget it. Titani. But indeed, the globalists and all of this stuff, we've seen for a while now that, Carney is all in. And we have, I did that again. How do I get it correct? There we go. We have this note here from Desiree Fixler saying, Canada, your crisis isn't U.S. tariffs, it's Mark Carney. He's lying. He will never grow your economy. Carney is a managerial elitist pushing the Davos agenda, net zero, CBDC, DEI, and many other strangleholds on growth and freedom. I know because I was one of them. I traveled in Carney's left circles for years. These folks don't care about ordinary people. They're only driven by autocratic power and money. Free your country from this authoritarian heist, unleash drilling, restore meritocracy, and take back your prosperity.
Click on that profile. I want to see what that person does. It's a screenshot?
Sure. Yeah, it's a screenshot, but I can type it in and see what I find. Fix.
Desiree Fixler.
Imagine you work in WEF and your name is Fixler. My mission is to end ESG and DEI. We love her. We love you, Desiree. We desire Desiree for what she's doing. So indeed, here she is going after. Yes,
Go up in the search and search Bitcoin. See what she says about Bitcoin.
I really like that header. Just speaker.
You do the name, the handle, not the
yeah.
So do from colon or from colon. Paste it.
You could just click the little search box
Space
just to
Bitcoin.
the left.
Oh, you can do that too?
Yeah.
You have to get rid of the @ symbol though.
Oh.
And the space. There you go. And then hit latest. And then we'll see all of our latest thoughts on Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is freedom.
Oh, we like like Desiree.
Desiree. It's freedom. Perfect.
She gets it. She's real because
gets it.
I don't trust verify, right? Like
No, it's
maybe she's just saying it for the tweets
Hey.
or the likes. Hey, she likes Bitcoin. She gets it. Okay, I approve that message.
and you were a fan of my book, The Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management, Brad.
That's right.
And that's what I say. Your reaction to Bitcoin is really the litmus test for what kind of NPC you are.
What's your Bitcoin story?
What's your Bitcoin
That's
origin
what you
story?
have in the book.
That's
What's
how
your
it
Bitcoin
works.
story?
Yeah.
Ask the person, what's the
Exactly.
Bitcoin story? If they don't have a Bitcoin story, they're lying.
Automatic. Yeah. Now, if their reaction is XYZ, then you can identify the type of
That's
NPC
a
they are.
great.
And then every NPC type can actually be, you can use Bitcoin to create cognitive dissonance in their brain, and like the underbelly of a dragon, open them up to perhaps being changed with a couple of counter spells, don't trust, verify, that kind of stuff. So
Did she say? She said Bitcoin is freedom last month. That's a good framing.
Yeah, we're fans. Very good, Desiree.
She didn't say she likes freedom.
Yeah, we didn't verify that.
Warning:
She
Bitcoin is freedom.
Bitcoin is freedom. If you like free speech, check out Bitcoin.
Yeah,
But I don't like free speech.
So we've got this from Alberta Separation next. So going further on what you said about the WEF compliance, keep doing that. Fix that. And of course, this is probably the biggest story in Canada this week. We love the ostriches. Everyone in the world paying attention to the
man, I
ostriches.
was depressed when that was happening. I actually felt like 15, 20 years ago, I was like kind of down the rabbit hole of after I had gone down the rabbit hole of money and taxes and like what is money, like from America Freedom to Fascism, the Aaron Russo movie that Ron Paul was in. I started like Googling more and figuring out more, and I got down to what's that crazy guy? They're burning all the frogs gay. That guy.
Alex Jones. Come on,
yeah.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones. I loved Alex Jones when I was younger. And
wrestling. If you like wrestling, you have to like Alex Jones.
When it got to the like reptile people, that's when I kind of realized I was too far down the rabbit hole.
David Icke.
I backed back out. Yeah, I was like, okay, it's too much. Well, I mean, I still use a Berkey from those days. I still have like 5 Berkeys. I buy them every couple of years. I buy a Berkey for the nostalgia. But he was covering like all this crazy shit all the time, like ATS or whatever going in, and these farmers were trying to like raise horses on their land, and the government was coming in and trying to kill them and all this shit. And I was like, this is so crazy and depressing following these news stories that I eventually had to just disconnect from it because it was like depressing me. And this ostrich thing has done the same thing to me. Like, I don't want to see much about this because I'm like, I know how this ends, and it's like sucks, and everybody's sad, and it's like the trucker convoy and all these different things where people are trying to stand up against the government. It doesn't usually work out very well. But
hold on, they got the cheat code. They brought the natives.
Something worked here, right? Like they ended up saving these ostriches
because they went under native protection.
So tell me about it. Like,
they can't insult the natives.
I avoided
them on everything. Remember,
I was seeing it, but I was like, I'm not reading this. I'm not watching these friggin' ostrich things because I'm like, I'm gonna feel bad. I don't want to feel bad about it.
That's what it was the there's some natives who came around and put them under their protection. I forget which tribe, maybe Nizga that's out there, I'm not sure, but it was one of the tribes that came around, and because they had to be consulted, they weren't.
This was in BC, right?
Yeah.
So the beautiful moment is when they give them the document saying we're under the protection of this native tribe, and the RCMP guy's head just about exploded because he's just like, what do we do? Like,
that's awesome.
My I was just following orders thing has reached the impenetrable barrier of we must do whatever the natives say.
Guys, they have all the cheat codes, man. I've got to be a native. I love, because right here on the border, we got Akwesasne, and because they're on both the New York and Quebec side. And I've crossed the border with these folks. They don't have to show any passport, nothing. Expired residential Indian cards are enough to cross. Expired. The guy I went with had an expired one. He had his weapons, he had his everything, tools to go work. He's a construction guy. and the border on either side can't do nothing about it. Like, where did our sovereignty go? And they get this. I want that. I don't want to carry a passport anyway. I don't even want a passport. I want out of passports. I want out of the passport game. I want to just be able to travel anywhere I want.
You know,
in
the
any
shitty
country.
thing though, because I spoke to a friend of mine that is like, you know, lives on a native tribe, a native band, whatever, and he was like, I can't own property. That's the stupid thing.
Yeah,
Like I have, if I want all these benefits, I have to be on the reserve, and I can't own property. I'm like, seriously? Like, can't you just like invest in property outside of the reserve? And he's like, not really. Like,
yeah. So what you're saying was probably the biggest, like the thing that made me sure Canada, and not just Canada, you know, almost all Western governance, because of the corruption of the media, was unsalvageable, and it was my last limit, which put me fully into Bitcoin, was that Stephen Harper did a lot for natives. He passed 5 or 6 pieces of legislation, and they were the most thoughtful, well-intentioned, clever, no sovereignty lost things. I'll tell you what they were. It was safe water. It was if you want elections to get rid of hereditary political systems, you can use the Canadian election system that they export to foreign countries like Ukraine if they want to clean up their elections. You can call on it and we'll give it to you. And if you choose to do that, you can actually start getting property rights as a function of your band and tribe. If you use an election, you can get the property rights. And then they did one other switch, which was matrimonial property rights, because the way it works over there on the reserves is indeed you don't own the property, but furthermore, if you get divorced, it's the woman who gets kicked out, which was always the answer to the missing murdered women story. It was that when you get into domestic, the man keeps the house and the woman gets the boot. So in every domestic, the woman was getting the boot because of whatever tribe stuff. And so very obviously these women were vulnerable. They were being kicked out of their house in an abusive situation, would end up in cities in big trouble. So we heard the testimony 1,000 times. So we created really the simplest rules you can imagine. And if you remember what it turned into, it was Attawapiskat, and that remember when they were having the floods, and they actually aired a thing on CBC where they got an old guy to show his mattress was moldy, and CBC literally blamed Stephen Harper for this guy's moldy mattress in his bedroom. Like, it's to that point. Like, Stephen Harper didn't make my bed or do my dishes. We clearly live in a dictatorship. And you remember they got like 100,000 people or something. She went on a hunger strike. Remember, she went on a hunger strike, and not Theresa May. That was the British Prime Minister. I can't remember what her name was. But she was still drinking meat broth and beef broth and fish broth. It was not really a hunger strike. It was totally fake. But the movie
was a juice fast.
It was a Greta fake story about everything. And there you go.
She just wanted to lose some weight.
Yeah, that's what convinced me the country was unsalvageable. And the media, because it was so obviously corrupt. There was nothing in the laws that Stephen Harper was passing that was supposed to hurt anybody. It was literally property rights, fresh, clean water. And we don't want the women having to get beaten and end up on the street in big cities as runaways. That was it.
So what, do you understand the mechanism by which they like took these ostriches under their protection?
Yeah. No. So this is why I brought it up, because the truth is the whole story is, I have Viva Frei here. The whole story is that it's from the bird flu stuff, right? It's that they have bird flu. And they're so beholden to the WEF viral drug global plans, vaccine, COVID, blah, 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 according anyway to Viva Frei, saying right here, right, saying, and there you have it. Oh, no, I think it's this one. It's not just they got this petition seeking to bar. So, yeah, they're trying to bar Donald Trump now because of this. Oh, no, I thought I had a better note on it.
So, yeah, it was basically like these birds got the bird flu like a year ago, and they all survived, and they've now been free of the flu for almost a year. But the CFIA is still, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is still insisting that they want to cull these birds. And the speculation is that it's because the birds who have now survived the bird flu have, for one, proven that the bird flu is not that big of a problem. but also may have antibodies that could be used in some research that would create a scenario where we don't need a bird flu vaccine. And the bird flu vaccine is obviously what, they'd like to push to their shrinking group of remaining brainwashed faithful who will take whatever next thing they pump out. And so I think the actual angle of killing the ostriches may have to do with maintaining this sort of health industrial complex profit scheme that they're trying to build, even though I think the general trust for vaccines is probably at an all-time low, and the number of people who just don't trust whatever these people come out with is certainly growing. So but it's like kind of what I was saying before, where like they've lost the plot so badly, like they have no idea how angry it is making Canadians that they want to kill these ostriches. And they're really just doubling down on every like cartoonishly evil supervillain plot that they can come up with these days, and just launching them.
And what makes this ostrich story even more depressing for Canada is that it's not even just a political party thing. It shows just how captured and cucked both parties are, because this is Pierre Poilievre not even talking about the ostriches, and Viva Frei mentioning here the Conservative Party are proving themselves to be not only useless, but active participants in the globalist takeover of Canada. Now that we understand exactly what is going on at a Universal Ostrich Farm, that is totally unnecessary slaughter of for the purposes of satisfying a globalist agenda with globalist organizations, almost a literal sacrifice to Canada's globalist overlords, it now makes total sense why the Canadian Conservative Party has been totally silent on the injustice. People said it before, and I was reluctant to agree. The CPC are not only not an opposition party, they are active participant in the globalist takeover of Canada, although they probably should have been clear when Conservatives voted unanimously in favor of conversion therapy ban, or when Pierre donned the Ukrainian garb and chanted Slava Ukraini. Hope it was worth it, Pierre Poilievre. You talked a good game. God save Canada, because the Conservative Party sure as hell won't. I think Bitcoiners recognize this, right? I know you had a good meeting last week, Brad, with Pierre, but I haven't heard him talking about Bitcoin ever since. He's not even talking about the fucking ostriches. This is like the most obvious slam dunk political thing in Canada, and they can't even.
First, though, like, Viva needs to get a thesaurus. He said globalist way too many times there. So whatever GPT he's using to write his tweets, encourage it to use different language,
different adjectives,
different words.
Mm-hmm.
But secondly, like there's the politics maneuver is not talk about every single huge divisive subject when you're the leader of the party. It's to try to like speak to the one that has the most broadest consensus, as like people care about it. So I don't personally think that like, Pierre needs to be out there raging against the ostrich colors, but like that's what the job of the independent voices is, right? His visions are like, let's try to like protect Canada from sinking, and hold the government to account. Like that's his job as the leader of the opposition.
His job is whatever the people want, really. He's supposed to be representing the people of Canada. And when you go and look at, like, if you go to click Pierre Poilievre's name there, I'm going to guess you will find that his first post, whatever it's posting about, all of the comments are about ostriches. It's what his constituents are asking of him.
I don't know. See, like the way that's why I like doing this show, because I like learning more about like how our system actually works, if it's going to survive. Because I feel like once you get to the leader of the country status, there's like a certain deference you have for the representation of what your title is, and MPs have to care about what their constituents care about and bring that stuff to the House of Commons. But like the leader of the opposition party, isn't the leader's job more to focus on holding the government to account rather than talking about these issues that are like, we care about them.
It's not that complicated. Their job is to get elected. Their job is to find wedge issues.
But if you were if you were like a nerd, like a political nerd who feels a deference to the crown, like when
Well-
Pierre got elected leader of the Conservative Party, like he was like stoked to say, you know, His Majesty's official leader of the opposition. Like he was like happy to have received that title, and like felt like when he was talking, like he was owning that.
Mm.
And it almost like you sort of almost sacrifice your personal beliefs and your personal cares
Well,
to-
maybe, but
to like
but
uphold this figurehead of what the opposition leader is supposed to do.
sort of. But here, I happen to have
Which maybe it means that our system is terrible and like kind
no,
of
but it's
backwards.
more, but it's not really part of the system. It's a bit of a taster's choice, because my insight here is that I knew Preston Manning's chief of staff. He became a senator for whom I worked. He was the guy who, you know, taught me a lot of this stuff, and he was Preston Manning's chief of staff. So I've met Preston a bunch of times as a result. I've had dinner with him a bunch of times. And I've heard a lot about how they handled him being the leader of the opposition, which was you're not allowed in Ottawa. You literally have to get out of Ottawa. You're allowed, you come to Ottawa for the sole intent of voting on things that are important or to give one speech. The actual orders were do not spend a single minute in Parliament. You're not there to keep anyone like that. Whatever we think about a count is not true. He was a populist politician. His literal job was to look for populist issues and then go around the country barnstorming, because that's the difference. If you're an MP, you can only travel between your riding and Ottawa. If you're the leader of the opposition, suddenly you have the mandate to travel from tip to tail of the country, just like the prime minister. And now you do have a national stage. And the point is to go and look for, in his case, it was all populism. They were looking for things that were, you know, getting people all excited and this and that. And I'm telling you right now, if it was still a populist like Donald Trump, like Danielle Smith, like a lot of Albertan politics, if he was really an Albertan politician, he would recognize that he has to be literally in British Columbia riding an ostrich, telling everyone you don't get sick and that ostriches are the best. He's got to be eating ostrich eggs. He's got to be like, you know, speaking of, you know, Wiley, and I guess as a road runner, not really an ostrich, but you know, he's got to go and everything's got to be ostrich. That's what they would have done.
Well, I mean, just everybody can go to ChatGPT and type what is the official duties of the leader of the opposition in Canada, and like I just did that, and it gives you a list of like based on our legal system and whatever, what the leader's supposed to do, and that's why it's like hard for somebody who's caring deeply about a subject, whether it's vaccine mandates, vaccine passports, Bitcoin, the ostriches, whatever your thing is that you care deeply about, because it's related to something that Pierre got elected on, which is free speech, property rights, sound money, individual liberties, all these things that we all care about and why we kind of got behind him. And then he doesn't talk about your shit. It's like, this guy sucks. He's weak. He's fearful. He doesn't keep his commitments. He's not actually on our side. Like he just wants to get his position, get paid. Like he's a WEF shill. He's a globalist. So clearly I think Viva is like offended by the faith he had in Pierre and the just like sort of bad job that ended up happening from listening to all the strategic advice to like, oh, don't talk about vaccine passports, don't talk about Tamara Lynch, don't talk about blah blah blah, and then in the end they lost anyways because they played the safe campaign. But it's like this whole thing is, I at least am trying to internalize it as, okay, it's not his job to care and carry the flag of Bitcoin. If I want to stay in this country, it's my job to carry the flag of Bitcoin and help him be comfortable to bring my issues up in government and actually make this like a party mandate. So if we really care that much, it's kind of our job. So like, you know, Viva left. So like, I don't know. I don't really take his criticism that seriously.
Yeah,
but
he had no choice. I mean, he was a candidate.
Sure.
He was a candidate for the People's Party. He ran pretty high-profile campaign in the last election with Bernier. He was Bernier's star candidate, and really believed he was going to win.
But I mean,
he thought he could win.
Did he have to leave though, or
yeah, he had to leave.
But if he leaves,
was targeted.
does his criticisms as valid? I mean, I don't know. Maybe
he's a refugee. He's a refugee. Honestly, I went to law school with him. I know the guy. He's a refugee. He never really wanted to leave Montreal. He stuck his neck out too far in the 2021 election.
I really like Viva Frei, by the way. I like his philosophies. I like the way he thinks. I like pretty much agree with nearly everything he says. But like the way I'm just thinking about it is, especially when it comes to Bitcoin, and now I apply it to other lenses, like Pierre's job is not to carry the flag of Bitcoin. Like maybe he cares about Bitcoin. He agrees with us on like the majority of things, but he has a job that's defined by the Constitution in Canada and all that stuff, which is kind of like supersedes his personal desires and what maybe he thinks about Bitcoin.
But his job is to carry the flag for what Canadians believe in. And when, like you were talking about, his base, the reason that he did well at all in the election was because of this large group of people who've now come to care about freedom, property rights, freedom of speech, all these things. And this is an example where the government of Canada, the bureaucracy of the government of Canada, at which reports to the political machine of the government of Canada, is proposing to very seriously violate the rights of some Canadians in a really gruesome way that I think a lot of Canadians find really distasteful. And so I think it is 100% Pierre's job to be standing up to this tyranny. This is an example of straight up unbridled tyranny, where
because the ostriches go to this. This is the same story, right? This is the exact same story as the ostriches. This is
exactly.
The digital ID cards. This is fax passports. This is everything we've already experienced in Canada.
And we elected him not as leader, as Canadians as a whole, as not as leader of the country, but as leader of the opposition. The role is to fight for our rights. And the role is to be fighting for all those things that he ran on. And he's just, the fact that he's completely silent on it is just, it is proof that he's not making his own decisions. He's not acting in the best interest of Canadians any more than Mark Carney is. He's just throwing the line.
The thing that kind of like is in my head, which is like the Bitcoin don't trust verify thing, is okay. So Pierre and his team have been like with open arms coming back to the Bitcoiners, almost saying like, this is the things that we need you to do. Like, we want to support, we believe in this. I read every Lynn Alden article. I watch Michael Saylor videos. I think Bitcoin's better than like saying all the stuff, right? Like, it's not blockchain, it's Bitcoin, basically like the same way that they were in 2022. And in my head, I'm like, okay, is this all just so that like they understand the power of the Bitcoin community in the leadership election? And there's a leadership review coming up, and Pierre needs to get reelected as leader. And now they can kind of see the benefit of a intransigent minority of Bitcoiners who care deeply about free speech, property rights, and sound money, wanting to get behind Pierre again. So he's kind of like throwing us a bone, meeting with us, telling us, hey, like do these things. And then I think, we can work together. We'll support you. But is it going to be like, okay, we do that. We spend all this time and money and resources to organize Bitcoiners to want to support him again in the leadership election, make sure he wins. And then they dump us again and they stop talking about Bitcoin the second he's the leader. Like confirm the leader again. And that's in my head. Like, I don't know anymore. He's not speaking about Bitcoin. He's not out there putting his neck on the line to motivate Bitcoiners to want to get behind him.
In a shocking turn of events, politicians have lied to us and told us what we want to hear.
Imagine.
I got to rethink my worldview. No, because to me, the ostrich thing is so simple and easy. It's like you're not spending any political capital. There's no way you can lose. I don't understand what the downside is, unless indeed you just you're thinking too much about it and you understand the long-term implications of you jumping in on that, and you're worried about looking like a hypocrite one day when you're saying, actually, we got to get on board with the WHO or the WOH, whatever that thing was called, the WOH, the WOH. So it's just it looks more and more like controlled opposition stuff, and it looks less and less sincere and authentic, because if you're really trying to get these wedge issues, and that was my job for Harper, was thinking about wedge issues that could get people to pay attention to what you want to do. And that's how I got into Bitcoin. It was the hearing from the state chartered co-ops and the state chartered banks that they couldn't do compliance with the money laundering and the FinCEN and the FinTrack and the FATA stuff, and we were hearing that it was some Parisian UN entity telling Canadian local co-op banks that they can't hire a loan officer and have to hire a compliance officer instead. And that, we had at the time, think about this, against globalists and all that, Harper was ready to destroy FATF, get rid of it in Canada, just because it was bad for local politics. It was bad for politics. It was bad for Quebec. It was bad because we love our co-ops in Quebec. We have the Caisse Desjardins. We were hearing from Caisse Desjardins all the time. It's a big problem. And he was trying to win votes, populist bottom-up votes, and he was willing to sacrifice any globalist entity to get us there. We had a mandate to destroy FinTrack in Canada when I worked for Harper. And I don't see anything like that coming out of these people. Not even close.
Well, like I said, I didn't actually get to meet with Pierre. I gave my seat up to Anna from the coalition because they only wanted one person from each entity in the meeting. And so I just heard what happened. But to his credit, like, the message was kept on Bitcoin specifically. And it was like the crypto guys in the room were trying to derail the conversation to stable coins and blockchain. And Pierre kept the topic of conversation specifically Bitcoin.
Good.
Didn't want to talk about stable coins. He didn't want to talk about crypto or blockchain. He wanted to keep it on Bitcoin. So like that, there's like, I'm conflicted, like I feel like I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. Like either I would be like, I quit and I'm just going to go all in on Bitcoin, like, become a Bitcoin podcaster, or I would have to, like, I don't know what do you do when you're the leader of a party in a constitutional sort of monarch? What are we? A monarchy?
Constitutional monarchy.
Like, what do you do? Like, when you're the leader of the opposition party,
Well,
like, can you change it?
This is our last question of the day, and he's got to have to think about it because this is what I'm seeing, and this comes from Table Salt again, who we all remember he's an NPC because of the Bitcoin thing. So let's take it with a grain of salt. But I think his prediction is correct here. I feel like something in Canada is coming to a head. I don't know what, though. I can't see the status quo continuing for very long. Anyone else feel that way? Are you guys feeling the same thing?
Yeah.
It looks like something's up here that you can't. If you're Paul Lever, my advice would be don't get too cute with planning for the future, because the way things stand, you got to go all in or all out right now.
Well, we're gonna. I think what's probably likely to happen, like the likely scenario, is we're gonna do whatever the U.S. does on the financial side. Like, what could come to a head is bankruptcy of the country. You know what I mean? Like, that's what could come to a head, but that's not just Canada, that's global. A global problem, right? And the US is probably going to try to lead the world by stimulating like crazy and announcing all these bailout programs, and we're probably going to do the same thing, and they're probably going to kick the can down the road again, and we're going to get stimulus, and it's going to be another delay of the inevitable, maybe 5 years, maybe 10, maybe 2, I don't know. But I don't think that this is
we're going to have to go through the end of the Canadian dollar if that's the scenario, because I doubt that Trump is going to allow the Canadian dollar to go. You need stable coins. He's not going to allow it to go up the coattails of the US dollar. Trump is winding up all the Ponzi's and rolling them into the US dollar Ponzi. There's no other hope.
That's a scary thing to think about, though. Like, what happens in that world? Like,
we're about to find out. It's Byzantium, basically.
So the only way that the Canadian dollar stablecoin is going to be allowed to live, and I think there's some stuff yet to be figured out here in terms of the legalities of stablecoins in Canada. But if the Canadian regulators allow a US or a CAD stablecoin to be partially backed by US Treasury bills, then there's an incentive for Trump to continue to allow that to exist, basically. It's essentially the bribe that's going on everywhere in the world is Trump is basically strong-arming everyone into investing in the U.S. in one capacity or another, either directly through business investment or through buying the T-bills. So
what it looks like now is that the U.S. dollar is backed by the stock market, and it's the actual big companies on the stock market loading up with T-bills, making up for the demand shortfall from other countries. and then stable coins are going to be the one big buyer that distributes it to individuals. So that's the plan. That's when we hear about what the Mar-a-Lago Accords are, because this is all going to get published probably within the next year until they actually have full control of the Federal Reserve, which should be complete and total subordination by May, possibly sooner. And at that point, you will start to see this stuff overtly put in. Even Stephen Moran coming in last week and saying there's now a third mandate, which is yield curve control. So when he got his seat in the Fed last week, we found out three things: that, of course, they're going to keep doing the interest rate with the inflation thing. Jobs were important, and a new third mandate, which was long
full employment and stable prices, and now yield curve control.
Yeah. Yeah, even the fake news was running those headlines. Like Reuters said the third mandate in quotes, but they're openly calling it the third mandate.
The heck?
Yeah, long-term yield curve control. And Moran is the architect of what are going to be called the Mar-a-Lago Accords, which everyone already knows about. It just hasn't been published into the economics sphere yet, but everyone sees what it is. It's load up on Bitcoin, send the stable coins. And go. Yeah.
Well, do that as an individual, I guess, is the way to protect yourself from the storm that can come from
that's there's only one choice.
The volatility of the Canadian dollar. The volatility of Bitcoin will buoy you from the volatility of the Canadian system.
Yeah. So everyone's getting swept into the US Ponzi. He's shutting down the other Ponzi's. The first being Argentina. Argentina is going to wind up right into the American system. It's over. Done. He bailed them out last week. It's done. The peso will die.
Wow. Well, what happened last week?
They have no money, and they burnt all their last reserves on trying to prop up the peso.
Okay.
And so they created whatever. I don't know what they did for them, but they did something in the market.
They've got this carry trade going where they're holding, or they're selling very high interest bonds, like 78%, I think was the rate. And at the same time, they've guaranteed that the peso will not decline more than 2% a month versus the US dollar. And so if that remains true, you can hold the bonds, which are paying a higher interest rate than the dollar is depreciating, and then just keep renewing on new short-term bonds.
That sounds like Terra Luna.
It's exactly the same thing as Terra Luna.
It's a Ponzi scheme.
It is. Yeah. We're calling it a triangle scheme.
Yeah.
So a triangle plan, not a pyramid scheme. So
triangle plan.
Yeah. But it is. It's exactly that. And
a triangle plan.
Maybe that's what ends up happening with Canada. We replace the Canadian dollar with Canadian tire money.
It's a triangle scheme,
and it works as long as they can hold. It's funny to call it a peg because it's not a peg to the dollar. It's still depreciating by 2% a month, which is a very fast rate. But as long as they can keep it at that rate, the whole thing holds up. But as soon as they are no longer able to maintain that peg, then all of the people sitting in those short-term bonds get rugged. And nobody buys the next version of the bonds, and they're broke.
And it's probably going to start turning into what we saw with Intel. It's going to start turning with the American government to it, putting direct investment, getting equity kickbacks, and there's going to be no other way. They're going to get equity kickbacks in Argentine energy and Argentine beef, and there's no other. They have nothing else to trade America, so they're going to have to start looting the company. And just like America's doing to its own domestic,
and it's ironic that it's Milei who's doing this, because he was running on let's get rid of the Federal Reserve, or let's get rid of the central bank.
Yeah, he opened up his own scams though, unfortunately.
Yeah, he really just
got the shit coining, and
he really just went the exact opposite direction. And it's the pull of the power, right? If you're positioned in front of the machine that prints money, and you just have to push the button, and then you can have some of the money, most people push the button.
Yeah, he couldn't let it go, and because we're pretty connected with Argentina here at Roxham, and so we hear the whispers and the rumors. And when the shitcoin thing started, we knew right away that his sister was selling Access, and this was all sort of confirmed and easy to see for us anyway. And looks like, I mean, it's well known now. I think it was well enough known by locals at the time. We didn't have special insight. We just pay attention to it. So not looking good over there. Not looking good. But Canada probably looking worse, to be honest, than even Argentina, which is funny. It's funny. You got to laugh. You got to laugh. Well, gentlemen, I love spending my Friday afternoons with you, and I'm always remiss when it comes to an end, but we shall see each other next week. We shall have the Canadian Bitcoin conference coming up in 2 weeks. I guess you're all going to be there, right, Dave? You're coming out here. And
Yep.
I've already RSVP'd for my steak dinner. I've already RSVP'd for the party at Ballon.
I haven't done any of this stuff. How do I do that?
I'm in. So Gibby's is right near me, so it's easy for me to get there.
Yeah, I don't know where to RSVP either, but maybe they're watching and they'll take this as Brad and I's RSVP.
Yeah, there you go.
We RSVP.
We're going to enjoy it. All right, gentlemen, you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy your autumn days. I'm not sure how autumnal it is out there in Alberta yet. I'm sure you guys don't have your seasons exactly like we do, but I think we've got peak leaves this weekend. I'm going to head out to the beautiful Green Mountains of Vermont and shoot some guns and enjoy some colored leaves, get some beautiful steaks and all that stuff. I hope you guys all have a great weekend as well. Let me see. I had a bunch of comments here, just noticed. Okay, all in on ostrich cowboy boots we get from Lee J. We like it. And you can't teach a slave nation about freedom. They don't care about freedom. They just want a kind master. Welcome to most of Canada. Yeah. Dave is bang on there. We got some folks talking about teacher negotiations here in Alberta. The government has offered up free COVID jabs. Lucky for the Canadians getting the free COVID jabs. Amazing. Salam alaikum to my beloved Bitcoiners. Nice seeing you all. Nice seeing you, Dr. Satoshi. Assalamu alaikum. See you again soon. Indeed. Enjoy it, fellas. Have a great weekend.
See you guys.
Peace out.